Don't forget to like the video. Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories. The rain was really coming down that evening, drumming our relentless rhythm against the living room window. It had been that kind of gray, grisly day that seeps into your bones and makes you want to curl up with a blanket and a good book. I'd just finished tiddying up after dinner, the dishwasher humming its quiet tune in the kitchen when the doorbell rang. It startled me a little. I wasn't expecting anyone, especially not in this weather, peeking through the peel. I saw Mark standing on the porch, shoulders hunched against the downpour, looking thoroughly soaked and a bit lost. Mark, my brother-in-law, my late husband Tom's younger brother. Mark, what on earth is? Wung the door open, ushering him inside. You're drenched. Come in, Huffered a sheepish, dripping smile. Hey, Sarah. Sorry to just show up like this. My car decided tonight was the perfect night to stall about 2 blocks down the road. My phone's dead, of course. I was hoping maybe I could use your phone to call a tow truck. Of course you can, I said, grabbing a thick towel from the linen closet. Here, dry off a bit, you look frozen. I led him into the kitchen, the warmest room in the house, thanks to the lingering heat from the oven. The smell of roasted chicken still hung faintly in the air. He gratefully took the towel, ruffling his dark rain-plastered hair, water pulled around his warring leather boots on the linoleum floor. Thanks, Sarah, you're a lifesaver. He looked around the kitchen, his eyes lingering for a moment on the framed photo of Tom and me, on the small shelf above the counter. It had been nearly 2 years since Tom passed, but his absence still felt like a physical presence, sometimes a silence. In rooms that used to echo with his laughter, Mark and Tom had been close, despite their different paths in life. Tom the steady engineer, Mark the restless musician who never quite settled down. Have you eaten? I asked, suddenly realizing he must be hungry. If he was out driving around at this hour, it was already past 8. He hesitated. No, not really. I was heading home, planning to grab something quick. Nonsense, I said, pulling open their refrigerator. I've got leftover roast chicken potatoes, some green beans. It'll only take a minute to heat up. You call your tow truck and I'll fix you a plate. No arguments. He gave another small smile, this one reaching. His eyes this time, they were tired eyes. I noticed lined at the corners more than I remembered. Okay. Sarah, if you insist. That sounds amazing. Actually, while he made the call, the tow company, promising someone within the hour, weather permitting, I warmed up the food. The simple domestic task felt grounding. Mark hung up the landline phone, the old beige one we kept plugged in for emergencies just like this, and leaned against the counter watching me. There was an unusual quietness about him, tonight usually. Mark was full of stories, jokes, a nervous energy that filled whatever space he was in tonight. He seemed subdued, almost thoughtful. Smell 7 better the second time around, he murmured, his voice low. Comfort food, I replied, arranging the chicken and vegetables on a plate. Good for rainy nights and stalled cars. And I set the plate on the small kitchen table, the one where Tom and I used to have breakfast, sit down, eat. He pulled out a chair and sat looking down at the food for a moment before picking up his fork. Thanks again. Sarah, really. I poured 2 glasses of red wine, placing one in front of him and taking the other for myself. Leaning against the counter opposite him, the rain continued, its steady beat against the window panes. The atmosphere in the kitchen felt strangely intimate, cocooned from a storm outside. We were just 2 people, connected by the man we both missed, sharing an unexpected meal on a miserable night. I watched him eat, the silence stretching between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was a companionable silence, heavy with unspoken thoughts and shared history. I had a feeling. This wasn't just about a stalled car. There was something else weighing on him. Something behind those tired eyes. And for some reason I felt a pull, a quiet need, to understand what it was. The night felt suddenly charged with a subtle current, a sense that the ordinary boundaries of our relationships, sister-in-law, brother-in-law, might be shifting, blurring in the dim, warm light of my kitchen. Mark finished eating, pushing the clean plate away with a sigh of contentment. That was incredible, Sarah, thank you. Honestly, I think I needed that more. Then I realized he looked up at me, his gaze direct, holding mine for a beat longer than usual. The tiredness was still there, but something else flickered behind it. Vulnerability. Perhaps you're welcome, Mark, I said softly, swirling the wine in my glass. Rough day even before the car decided to quit on you. He let out a short, humorless laugh, you could say. That rough month really may be a rough year. He ran a hand through his still damp hair things. Things haven't been going too great. The band's kind of falling apart, gigs are drying up, and Mel, and I decided to call it quits a few weeks ago. Melinda, his long-term girlfriend. I hadn't known Mark wasn't. Always the best communicator, often letting Tom be the bridge between him and the rest of the family. Since Tom's passing, Mark had drifted even. Further, his visits becoming less frequent a lark. I'm so sorry, I said, genuinely surprised and saddened. I had no idea. He shrugged, looking down at his hands, clasped on the table. Yeah, well, wasn't exactly shouting it from the rooftops. It was mutual, sort of just fizzled out, like a damp firework. He attempted a smile, but it didn't quite lend. Seems to be the theme of my life. Lately I moved from the counter and sat down in the chair opposite him, mirroring his posture. It sounds like you're carrying a lot right now. He looked up again, a flicker of surprise in his eyes, as if he hadn't expected me to pry. Or perhaps hadn't. Expected the simple acknowledgement of his burden, yeah. I guess I am. He took a slow sip of his wine. It's funny when Tom was around. I don't know, things felt different, like I had a safety net. Someone who just got me. His voice thickened slightly on his brother's name. A familiar resonated in my chest. I know what you mean, I whispered. Tom had been that person for me too. The anchor. The one who understood without explanation. We sat in silence again, but this time it felt different. Charged the shared grief. The unspoken understanding of loss created a new kind of connection between us. It wasn't just Sarah, Tom's wife, and Mark, Tom's brother. It was two, people adrift in their own storm, finding a moment of unexpected harbor, in a quiet kitchen on a rainy night. Mark said, his voice barely above a murmur. Tom always said you were the strongest person. He knew he admired you. So much. Sarah, tears pricked my eyes. Unexpectedly, Tom rarely spoke about his feelings in such direct terms, at least not. To me, hearing it from Mark felt like a posthumous gift of validation I hadn't known I needed. He never told me that. He wasn't always great with saying things directly. Mark chuckled softly, a genuine warmth in the sound this time. But he felt them deeply. He worried about you. After worried about you being alone. I manage, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. It's quiet, sometimes too quiet. But I manage. It was the truth. But hearing myself say it aloud felt raw, exposing a loneliness usually kept. Carefully tucked away, Mark reached across the small table, then his hand, hesitantly covering mine where it rested near my wine glass. His touch was warm, unexpected. It wasn't a romantic gesture. Not in the conventional sense. It felt like solidarity, a simple, human connection. My breath hitched slightly, surprised by the jolt of warmth that shot up my arm. The sudden intensity of his gaze. His eyes, dark and deep, seemed to be searching mine, looking for something. Understanding, acceptance. You're not alone tonight. Sarah, he said quietly, his thumb brushing lightly. Against my knuckles, the gesture was small, fleeting, but it sent a cascade of confusing emotions through me. Gratitude, sadness, a strange, unsettling flutter of something I couldn't name. It was the kind of touch that speaks volumes, bridging the gap between polite conversation and genuine emotional intimacy. The rain lashed against the windows, isolating us, further amplifying the sudden closeness that had bloomed between us. In the warm glow of the kitchen light, the tow truck felt a million miles away. The moment stretched, suspended in the quiet hum of the house, and the rhythm of the rain. Mark's hand remained covering mine. A point of surprising warmth and connection. I didn't pull away part of me, the part that had felt so adrift since Tom's passing, craved this simple grounding touch. It wasn't about replacing Tom. Nothing could ever do that. But it was about feeling seen. Feeling understood, even for a fleeting moment. He eventually drew his hand back slowly, as if reluctant to break the connection he cleared, his throat looking down at the edible again. "Sorry," he mumbled. "Didn't mean to overstep, you didn't?" I said, my voice softer than I intended. "It's okay, Mark." I took another sip of wine, the liquid courage helping. Steady my nerves, the air still felt thick with unspoken things. "It sounds like you've been going through hell," he added, gently guiding the conversation back to him, though I felt strangely exposed myself. Now he sighed, leaning back in his chair. "It's just everything. Feels like it's slipping through my fingers, the music. Mel getting older. Wondering what the hell I've actually accomplished. You know," he gestured vaguely with his hand. Tom had it all figured out. Career, marriage, house. He built something solid. Me, I'm still chasing melodies in dive bars and living out of boxes. Tom admired you too. You know, I countered, gently. He admired your freedom. Your passion for music. He used to say, "Hewish." He had half your courage to just go, "For it, consequences be damned." Mark looked, genuinely surprised he sent that. More than once I confirmed he saw the stability. The mortgage. The routine as a kind of cage. Sometimes he loved his life, loved me, loved his work, but there was a part of him that envied your path. Mark the road less traveled. A slow smile spread across Mark's face, transforming his features, chasing away some of the weariness. "Huh. Never told me that either." He shook his head, a wry look in his eyes. "We were a pair. Weren't we both admiring what the other had? Maybe without fully appreciating our own lives. Maybe I agreed we often do that. Don't we focus on what's missing instead of what's there?" I thought about my own life. The comfortable home, the financial security. Tom had left me. The quiet predictability. It was safe. Yes, but sometimes, especially on nights like this, it felt etchingly empty. Was I any less adrift than Mark just because my boat had softer cushions? "What about you, Sarah?" he asked quietly, his gaze searching again. "Are you happy? Are you lonely?" The directness of the question took me aback. It wasn't a question. People usually asked, not really. They asked how you were doing, and you gave the polite expected answer. But Mark wasn't asking for the polite answer. He was asking for the truth. And standing there in the warm isolation of my kitchen with the rain as our only witness, I felt an unexpected urge to give it. To him, sometimes I admitted the word, barely a whisper. Yes, I am lonely. Sometimes terribly lonely. The house is too big, the silence is too loud. Tears welled again, and this time I didn't fight them. They tracked silently, down my cheeks. I miss him. I miss having someone to just be with, to share the silence with. Mark didn't say anything immediately. He just watched me, his expression filled with a profound, heart-wrenching empathy. He reached out again, not to touch me this time, but placing his hand flat on the table near mine, a silent offering of support. And then he started to talk. He spoke about his own loneliness, the choking emptiness of his apartment now, that Mel was gone, the feeling of being disconnected. Even when surrounded by people in noisy bars, he talked about his fears, his insecurities, the knowing feeling that maybe he'd missed his chance, that the dreams he chased for so long were just illusions. He wasn't looking for pity, nor was I. It was a shedding of skins, a peeling away of the layers we presented. The world in that small kitchen, surrounded by the scent of roasted chicken and the sound of the storm, we laid bare our vulnerabilities, our shared humanity, our common experience of loss and longing. It was incredibly intimate, more intimate than many physical encounters could ever be. It was a meeting of souls, stripped bare by circumstance and honesty. The subtle tension I'd felt, earlier had transformed into a deep, powerful current of shared emotion, pulling us closer in a way I could never have anticipated. The flashing blue and red lights of the tow truck reflecting off the wet street outside suddenly felt like an intrusion from another world. A world that didn't understand the fragile, profound connection being forged within these four walls. The arrival of the tow truck broke the spell. Its flashing light, painting shifting patterns on the kitchen walls through the rain-streaked window. Mark stood up, scraping his chair back slightly. "Well," he said, his voice a little rough, "guess that's my ride, right?" I nodded, standing up too. The transition back to practicalities felt abrupt, almost jarring after the depth of our conversation. The air crackled with the unsaid, the lingering intensity of our shared vulnerability.